And if there is one thing that I've learned in the past 15 years in teaching, is that education is really a shared responsibility. If we want to get the most in providing basic education to our students, we must involve all the stakeholders. A pleasant afternoon to all of you. It's really an honor to be part of this sharing engagement across the region through these Conrad Adenauer political and civic engagement spaces. There are a lot of pictures that show the present status of education in the Philippines, from the evolution of curriculum to the existing infrastructure, the availability of learning resources, the completeness of physical facilities in our schools, the extent of education stakeholders' engagement, and teacher development programs and activities, among others. Schools have different contexts in terms of needs and vary on how these needs be given attention. The COVID-19 pandemic was so far the most challenging events in the implementation of basic education in our country. And the Bakawan Sur Elementary School in the municipality of Concepcion, Iloilo, Philippines, where I am presently connected, face a lot of struggles in the new normal. To give you a scenario of Bakawan Sur Elementary School, it's actually a primary school turned into a complete elementary because of the sudden increase of enrollment from around 100 to three-folds of that. This increase of learners' population was due to the presence of housing units provided to the victims of Typhoon Yolanda in 2013. There are 14 teachers to cater around 370 learners, but there were only five standard classrooms for temporary learning space and single detached gender segregated toilets. Hand washing facilities and water sources are also limited. These are just few of the issues and concerns that need to be addressed in a single school prior to the opening of school year in 2020-2021 under the new normal. Our topic is focused on infrastructure and teacher development, and I'll be sharing experiences on how we thrive from this. That is, provision of standard classrooms will take a lot of process, such as reporting in the ABIS or the Enhanced Basic Education Information System. It's a database of education statistics, sector performance indicators, and profile of public and private schools, learning centers, and other education service providers. The needs were identified and included in the planning for the allocation of funds, and all the rest of the process would entail for schools to wait. But of course, the lack of classrooms for our learners is a need that has to be addressed immediately. Our school's division, provided us with an amount of 400,000 pesos, enough to build 6 temporary learning space. Our local government unit, headed by our municipal mayor, Dr. Banyas, also provided us with an additional 400,000 pesos for the improvement of the TLS. We also received a lot of donation for an additional site, for the proposed additional classrooms from the local government unit and other NGOs. Our barangay officials are also on top of giving us assistance. The point of sharing this is that we have gaps to be addressed when it comes to infrastructure. It is not only the concern of DepEd, but in the present educational structure, our local education stakeholders can also do their share. It is indeed everyone's responsibility to provide the best possible learning spaces for our learners. As mentioned by Mayor Rex yesterday, that it really takes a village to educate a child. The new normal in education pushes DepEd, Department of Education, to explore different learning delivery modalities to cater the various needs of our learners. And this entails a new experience on the part of the teachers. When we started distance education, each school prepared the contextualized school learning continuity plan, adopted from Department Order Number 12, Series of 2020, from which all the interventions were laid down to ensure learning continuity, and that includes the capacity building of teachers. We went through a series of trainings to include the LDM1, or what we call the Learning Delivery Modalities course for school administrators, and the Learning Delivery Modalities 2 for our teachers. These short-term courses capacitate our teachers on how to handle distance education, and it's really on the second year of implementation. Each school is also conducting SLACs, or what we call the School Learning Action Cells, that was based on DepEd Order Number 35, Series of 2016. What we do in SLACs are we we have sessions conducted by a group of teachers who engage in collaborative learning sessions to solve shared challenges encountered within the context of the school. A lot of virtual trainings were also conducted by our division, our regional office, and our DepEd central office, focusing on different topics to include the preparation of the contextualized self-learning modules, capacity building of our LSAs or the learning support aids that we have, mental health and psychosocial support, to name a few. While we believe that DepEd is facing a lot of gaps focusing on infrastructure and teacher development, school principals are empowered in Republic Act 9155, where decentralization takes place. And it's really on the hands of our school heads to improve operations through the proper utilization of financial and human resources. I believe that the successful implementation of basic education in the Philippines, even during this time of pandemic, rely mostly on the capacity of school leaders to navigate the school. I am Mr. Rogie Espulgar, the school principal, and it's always on top of my priority to provide quality education among our Filipino learners. Para sa bata, para sa bayan.
It's different from the other perspective we have heard so far. So because you put a lot of estimate on the roles of principals in delivering quality education. So what could you share with us in the pandemic as the best practices in difficult times that we could take home maybe to our own schools and check whether certain things are in place or are planned in the same way?
Thank you, Ms. Alina, for the question. This pandemic really affected the implementation of education in the Philippines, and not only in our locality but in the whole Philippines. And if there is one thing that I've learned in the past 15 years in teaching, it is that education is really a shared responsibility. If we want to get the most in providing basic education to our students, we must involve all the stakeholders. We must involve the home, the school, and the community. More than ever during this time of pandemic, the more that we involve our parents, the guardians, our local government unit, and community members, the more that we can provide quality, accessible, relevant, and liberating basic education. So uh, it really takes a village to educate a child. So if you want to really provide quality education to our learners, we have to help. No, we have to help each other. All the members of the community must involve.
So for you as a school, how do you go about it? Do you have like a parents roundtable, or how easy is it to engage the parents? What are your mechanisms to actually engage with other stakeholders, especially in COVID times, which make it, I guess, more difficult?
When we started distance learning education, most of our learners in the Philippines are having this print module print learning delivery modalities, meaning our learners are learning through the self-learning modules, and so the teachers are not there. No, the learners are learning at home, and so who will the teachers then? We talk with our parents, we talk with our guardians and any members of the family who can provide technical assistance to our students. They will be serving as learning support aid. So before we conducted the school year 2020-2021, we prepared a school learning continuity plan. The school learning continuity plan is actually a plan on how to go about the very unique school year that we have, and so we wanted to involve all the education stakeholders. We conducted meetings with our with our parents. We conducted meetings with our local officials. We have this collaboration with the LGUs, and the question actually is who will be serving as the learning support aides of our learners. And so we utilize our parents and guardians. We provided trainings to our parents. We teach them how to go about the accomplishments of the learning support materials for our learners. And it's not easy. It's not easy. Much more that we find it difficult to communicate with our learners. It's either we conduct home visitations or we conduct calls for those learners who have mobile phones. No? And that's one thing that we really have to strengthen in this distance learning education that we have, that is providing learning support aid to our learners. And so this is how the parents or our guardians played an important role in the delivery of the distance learning.
And Mr. Espulgar, as a principal, so as school leadership, which kind of support you would wish for from your government?
I think if there is one thing that I would like to improve in the implementation of distance learning in this time of pandemic, especially during this time, it's the internet connection. Majority of our schools in the Philippines have no stable internet connection, and we know that most of our competencies, most of our learning competencies are into internet connection, and we just want to have that. That stable internet connection for us to improve our teaching and learning process. In Concepcion, there are 36 schools, no, 40 schools including high schools, and I think only in the mainland the schools can access the internet connection. Those schools in the islands, in the mountains, can hardly reach the signal for internet connection. So I would appeal to the government that I think this is one thing that we want to improve in Department of Education. I know that some of our curriculum, our competencies require internet connection, and so there are just some of the things that we cannot do beyond our control.
And we have someone from the audience asking whether the online learning platforms are free of charge, so whether they're freely available, or do you use your own application to facilitate students' learning? Mr. Espulgar, how do you do it in your school?
Thank you, Miss Alina. As what I have mentioned earlier, in the municipality of Concepcion or even in the schools division of Iloilo in the Philippines, majority of our learners are learning through the self-learning modules. No? So we are not, we may combine internet connectivity platforms to our learners, but mainly we are using the module print. No? So our learners are learning through the printed modules. The parents are getting the modules in the school. Then these modules will be answered by our learners at home. We can hardly use the internet in this time of pandemic because of some issues in the internet connection. So I can say that majority of our learners are using of the printed modules instead of the internet connection.
I see. Thank you so much, Mr. Espulgar.